This video is brought to you with the support of Movie Poster Archives, the only nonprofit dedicated to the preservation of movie accessories, and the following LAMP sponsors.
Film preservation was started in the United States in 1926 by Will Hays, who was brought in to help set up a self-regulating studio censorship board. Since that time, multitudes of groups and organizations have spent literally millions of dollars on film restoration to preserve our film heritage. And rightly so. Exactly how much of America's film production has already been lost remains difficult to say. The most familiar statistic, which has attained its authority primarily through repetition, is that we have lost 50% of all titles produced before 1950. This according to the Film Preservation 1993, a study of the current state of American film preservation. In his 2013 lecture to the National Endowment for the Humanities, Martin Scorsese stated, "But I have to say that we are too late. Over 90% of all silent cinema is gone, lost forever." The United States Congress commissioned David Pierce, a well-known archivist, to do an in-depth report on the status of feature films from 1912 through 1929. Pierce reported that 75% of all feature films made in the United States during this same time period are indeed lost. A feature film is considered a film over 1 hour in length, normally 5+ reels. The question is, when you think about silent films, who do you think about? Keystone Cops? Charlie Chaplin? Laurel and Hardy? Harold Lloyd? Our Gang? Will Rogers? Charlie Chase? Ben Turpin? Mabel Normand? Fatty Arbuckle? Buster Keaton? Mary Pickford? Most of their work was in shorts and limited in feature-length films. Here's a couple of examples. Between 1912 and 1929, Hal Roach produced 853 films, of which only 13 were feature films. The other 840 are not included in the stats or the report. Then Hauser produced 1,086 films between 1910 and 1917. Only 51 of those were feature films, leaving 1,035 not included in the stats or the report. Thousands upon thousands of newsreels, regionals, shorts, documentaries, and travelogues are not even covered in the stats. So, if we don't have the film anymore, what is the next best thing? The historical documents that were issued with the film accessories. With all the millions spent in the U.S. on film preservation, besides Movie Poster Archives, we have not been able to find a single organization dedicated to film accessories. No poster preservation societies, no groups to preserve film accessories. In fact, most institutions won't even look at film accessories because of the difficulties in documenting. Let's look at an example. In 2010, there was a huge find in the film community. A film was found that had Charlie Chaplin in it. The film community in California didn't realize Charlie Chaplin was even in the film. It became the headliner for the 2010 Cinecon convention. Here is the announcement that they issued. If they had just taken the time to look at the poster that was issued with the film, this would not have been such a surprise. Several re-releases in the teens and 20s used this image on the posters for The Thief Catcher with varying backgrounds. Then your next question should be, why aren't museums and institutions compiling and reconstructing the lost film history using film accessories? Simply put, they can't. Museums, institutions, and universities are not set up to reconstruct the film accessories because of their structure. All regular museums, institutions, and universities are set up on the same basic principle. They acquire a collection, preferably donated. They have a curator and archivist to take care of that collection. Then people come to that facility to see the collection. This brings in revenue, interest, and stability for that facility. The archivist's job is to take care of that collection. If it is not in that collection, it is not part of their job, and therefore does not exist to that archivist and facility. In most cases, this system works great, and has for many decades, if it is documenting the life of a famous person or an important event. Great. You see, normally a collection will come from a director or an actor or sometimes even a studio. For a specific film, they might get the script, production notes, a costume or two, and a couple of stills or posters. That would be a pretty good acquisition. If you have a couple of posters for each film, isn't that enough? When it comes to film accessories, suddenly you're in a different and still largely undocumented world. Very few realize the magnitude of film accessories. Also, another consideration is that most museums and universities are geared to a particular area, such as a city or state, or to a particular topic. When a collection is received, the items of interest are picked out and the remainder is left in storage. Most museums and institutions can't sell or give away donated items except to another nonprofit. So the normal procedure for film accessories is to leave them in storage until they deteriorate, so they can be written off the books. We know of donated materials sitting in museums for decades in the same donated boxes because they didn't fit into the parameters of the museum. Here's one area being explored. In 2002, archivist and filmmaker Rick Schmidlin began questioning if the framework of a lost film could be reconstructed utilizing stills and a continuity script. The resulting film made its broadcast debut on Turner Classic Movies. Here's a clip. Unfortunately, the collectors that preserved and cherished these pieces are vanishing, and their heirs do not share the passion or interest in preserving them. Movie paper has always presented quite a few extremely unique situations. Unlike regular art, movie paper was usually printed on cheap acidic paper, as it was meant to be thrown away. And accurate documentation in some areas has almost been non-existent. So cataloging, verifying, authenticating, or appraising has to be done almost completely blind. No price guides, no associations, no advisory boards, no central location for information or verification, and no public repositories. Currently, most verifications and values are determined by scouring the internet, hoping to find correct information. So how important is accurate documentation? Both of these litho posters measure 27 by 41 inch. One is valued at $100. The other is valued at over $270,000. Would you know the difference?
Thank you for watching this Learn About Movie Posters presentation. For more information, visit learnaboutmovieposters.com.